This is a very expensive holster. Safariland's 6395 RDS is one of the surprisingly few options that offer active retention for a lights and sights Glock, and is also in use by US forces in cases where they can afford it. I've had mine for just shy of 2 years now, and it's still going strong. We're going to go into detail here about the specifics of using this with the Glock 17 and 19, what's good and what's bad, and whether it's worth its price tag, as well as what areas you can save money in. Full disclosure, by the way, I have no affiliation with Safariland, and I did email the main retailer for these in the UK about whether they'd be alright with me mentioning them, and they didn't respond. So, first up, how does this work? The holster has a lever with a nub on one end that you actuate with your thumb, a pivot point in the middle, and a bar on the other end that locks into the ejection port. It's simpler than it looks, and the design tensions the gun between the ejection port and the trigger guard, so you can have a bare gun to start with and have no retention issues at all, then switch over to lights and sights in whatever configuration you want at any other time. I haven't tested a lot of options for lights and sights because these things are expensive, but I have had no trouble with my Olight Valkyrie and my reproduction Surefire X300U, that's the longer one, and no issue with any of my reproductions of Doctors or RMR sights. This comes with a hood by default, which retracts automatically when you draw the gun, and it's easy to flip it over when reholstering as part of the motion when taking your hand away. This hood is also very easy to remove, and Safariland has used very high quality plastics throughout the system, so I have no concerns about ever breaking it. Now, what do you get when you buy this? In the original package you get the holster, the low ride universal belt loop, UBL, to go from the belt to the holster, and the screws to put these together. You do not get the quick release fork you see here, but you can buy them, and there are also reproductions available for cheaper that have turned out to be good enough for me so far. It is a quality of life improvement, and I personally benefit from it because I'm in a tight spot in the safe zone a lot of the time, and it does stick out a bit if you keep it on, but I'm not sure if this would be necessary for most users. On the UBL front, it's worth noting that there are also other reproduction belt loops that you can get online, however, this is a part that requires quality in its plastic, and the reproductions do not live up to this. I broke mine pretty quickly. If you want a UBL, like another colour, another height or whatever, get the Safariland, do not cheap out on that part. In terms of which UBL to go for, I've seen the mid-ride become the recommendation of choice for all the content creators I've seen, but I prefer the low-ride personally. I don't find that it gets in the way when running, and the lower height does make for an easier draw. Another thing that's not included here is a leg strap. I consider this to be a very good purchase for the system because you can be putting upward pressure on the holster if you miss the button when drawing, and you won't actually notice it when you're drawing for a while, whereas with a strap it keeps everything in line and you feel that pressure immediately if you have missed the button coming into it. It's hard to explain, but if you do go for this system, then try it for a while without a strap and see what happens. When you do decide to buy a strap, the Safariland one is not that expensive, but maybe a bit thin. It depends on your leg size and preference. I've gone for a reproduction of a GP gear strap, and it's great for me, but the genuine ones are not that expensive. I've got lucky with mine, but my concern would be fraying of the stitching in reproductions, so I would recommend starting out without the leg strap and then getting a decent one later down the line. The only thing I can say in terms of brands is that the T-Rex one has an eyelet to ensure the strap stays in the exact same orientation around your leg at all times. This isn't a problem I've ever experienced with mine that doesn't have this, so when thinking about brands, something to think about. There is one more thing you can get for this that comes with a good reputation. It's called the ALS nub from a company called OT Defense. This enlarges that nub without it getting in the way of the draw, and I can certainly think of a few occasions where that would have helped me in times of trying to go too quickly. I haven't personally tried it yet though, so I can't speak from experience. Now that we've covered what you can do for this off the shelf, there are a couple things you can do to it at home to improve it further. By default, this will snugly fit a Glock 17, loosely fit a Glock 19, but still with solid retention, and snugly fit a Mark 27, which is just a 19 with a bit of extra barrel and the optic cut. It's worth noting that I haven't had any retention issues with any gun that clicked in successfully. If it clicks, then it's good. What it will not fit is a standard thread protector on a Mark 27, as it comes forward just slightly too far, and it also won't fit a compensator. Suppressors are out of the question for this design, but it is capable of fitting a bit more at least by removing the barrel plug and then dremeling the interior until the gun slides into the locking point. I recommend a sanding bit for this rather than any of the more hardcore bits that would get the job done quicker, simply because you're working with relatively thin material and you don't want to end up with a hole in your holster. Frequent checks and endless patience are your friend. One more tip, put your thumb on the slide when reholstering and it will stop that slide from being pushed back by any friction in the locking mechanism. This isn't a problem with proper guns, but these have much weaker recoil springs and no one likes a double feed. Lastly, the price. I paid 220 quid for this in 2021 and it's now up to 245 with no signs of any reductions on the horizon. As far as I've seen, this appears to be one of, if not the most expensive holster available for purchase in the UK, and they also only stock the multicam Glock 17 variant here. So, in conclusion, this is a competent, hard shell, active retention holster with a huge price tag and a decent range of upgrade potential, but would I recommend it? Actually, yeah, I would. If you're a fan of the lights and sights Glock, or you have a Glock and are planning to go the lights and or sights route in future, then this is a really good option that will work well in the early stages and last you until well into the future. I haven't got a single scratch or nick on mine despite really banging it around, and the only visible wear is on the included Cordura wrap flaying from a tiny bit at the edges. This is a solid design, solid materials and solid fitment. It's just really good, and I prefer this type of retention over the Israeli style button holsters that you get as well. I haven't ever lost a gun out of any of those, but I just don't trust it as much. If the Safariland fits your use case and your budget, then it's absolutely worth a look. Thank you for watching, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you happen to own one of these already, we would really appreciate seeing your opinions in the comments as well. See ya!